Marriage. It usually starts out so well. None of the couples beaming in wedding photos think that they'll be the ones to get divorced. But, statistically speaking, there's a 50% chance that they will. Not that anyone actually says that in wedding speeches. When it comes to love, we're eternal optimists, so what goes wrong? What happens between the time when the lovebirds are uttering sincere vows to always love and cherish each other and the moment they're sitting in a lawyer's office dividing up the marital property? In this book, you'll learn the key signs of a troubled marriage, practical strategies for improving the communication in your relationship, and how to change negative dynamics, no matter how entrenched they are. Gottman has categorized successful relationships as having three key styles: validating, volatile, and avoidant. A validating relationship is most obviously functional. Couples take time to acknowledge problems in the relationship and respectfully work them out. A volatile one is more passionate. These couples seem to go from 1 to 100, bickering constantly about everything. But they also quickly make up, obviously enjoy each other's company, and make each other laugh. The avoidant couple, on the other hand, skirts around problems in the marriage. They air complaints but never tackle them head-on. Nonetheless, even though they don't find resolution, they respect each other and emphasize what keeps them together, rather than what could tear them apart. Successful marriages can come in many different forms. And fighting isn't necessarily a bad thing. One of Gottman's most surprising findings is that marriages need conflict, or what he describes as negativity, in order to survive. But it's a delicate balance. An explosive fight needs to be countered by a passionate coming together again. A list of complaints needs to be balanced by affirmation and validation. Otherwise, the couple can get stuck in a negative downward spiral. This spiral is very hard to interrupt because the more negative the interaction, the harder it is to listen to one another generously, or give the other person the benefit of the doubt. Gottman identified 4 red flags that suggest couples are getting caught in a negative spiral. They are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. The first horseman is one that all of us know very intimately: criticism. To see it in action, let's turn to our case study. Eric and Pam had recently gotten married. They were madly in love, but often bickered about money. They were saving up for a house, and had decided to save as much as possible. The problem was, they had entirely different definitions of what that actually meant. Eric thought that eating out less often and biking to work was enough of a sacrifice. Pam took it to another level and started doing supermarket shopping using coupons and denying herself any new clothes. Consequently, she became angry at what she saw as Eric's extravagance. She started chiding him each time he brought home a nice bottle of wine or a steak. When he didn't change his behavior, the tone of her complaints changed. She started saying things like, "You're so inconsiderate and selfish," or, "You never listen to me." At that moment, complaints about specific behavior had shifted to criticism of who Eric was as a person. The first horseman had entered their home. We all criticize each other from time to time. It's normal. But this kind of criticism can also become entrenched in a relationship, coloring how you interact with your partner, and even how you see them. Unchecked, criticism can usher in the second apocalyptic horseman, contempt. Contempt is different from criticism. When you behave contemptuously toward your partner, you not only want to criticize them, you intentionally want to hurt them, or make them suffer. It's a kind of psychological abuse. Let's see how contempt affected Eric and Pam's relationship. After a year, they were still fighting about money. But by then the fights had escalated. Eric had stopped apologizing for his spending and had started hurling insults at Pam, calling her a stingy cheapskate and saying he'd no idea why he'd married her in the first place. In turn, Pam started feeling disgust toward Eric, and took every opportunity to let him know how disappointing he was to her. In truth, neither of them could remember why they'd married one another. Their marriage had become a battleground, filled with contempt. The couple had stopped seeing each other in a positive or admiring light. Their judgmental beliefs about each other had hardened and become the truth. Contempt is expressed in insults and name-calling, sarcasm or hostile humor, or even outright mockery. And contempt can be read all over your body, in how you sigh or roll your eyes, or turn away from your partner when they're talking. That contempt beckons a third horseman into the marriage, defensiveness. If you're bombarded by negative judgments, isn't it a natural reaction to want to defend yourself? Eric and Pam's marriage had become so hostile that they felt like they had to be on guard with each other all the time. They perceived everything the other person said as an attack, and poured all their energy into defending themselves, and deflecting blame onto the other person. For example, if Pam criticized Eric for getting a speeding ticket, he blamed her for making them late in the first place. There was never any real discussion because they were both so invested in proving that they were in the right. This defensive cycle invites the fourth and most dangerous horseman into the relationship, stonewalling. Stonewalling is exactly what it sounds like. One partner, or worse, both partners, stops engaging completely and becomes like a wall of stone. That's precisely what happened to Eric and Pam. After years of conflict, Eric reached a point where he stopped even bothering to argue with Pam. Instead, he'd just ignore her, as if she wasn't talking at all. Or he'd shake his head and leave the room. Stonewallers sometimes believe that they're behaving in a neutral way, but in fact this is very provocative behavior. You're communicating to your partner that they don't even deserve your attention, even though they're upset. That's how unimportant they are. Understandably, this is completely enraging to the ignored partner, who just starts screaming more loudly, leading to even more stonewalling. How do you save a marriage that seems to be stuck in a negative deadlock? Turns out, it's not as complicated as you may think. Improving how you communicate won't take years of therapy or some fancy retreat in Bali. In fact, Gottman has isolated 3 communication skills that will turn your relationship around. Mastering these techniques, he promises, will take you 75% of the way to maximizing your marital happiness. The strategies aren't designed to stop you arguing. Remember, conflict is good for a relationship. What matters is how you argue. These skills will help you argue better. You'll be able to express how you're feeling without defensiveness, and show your partner that you're listening. So, let's dive in. The first strategy is learning how to regulate your emotions. During an argument, it's very common to feel flooded. This is a sensation of being completely overwhelmed by emotions. When you're flooded, your heart rate speeds up, and you produce extra adrenaline. Your body has activated its fight or flight response because you feel under attack. So the first thing to learn is how to stay calm in the heat of an argument. This'll help you think clearly and hear what your partner is saying. When you feel yourself getting flooded, or overwhelmed and panicky, immediately take a time out. It's good to agree on a signal beforehand with your partner, and explain that you're not trying to avoid the discussion. On the contrary, you want to make sure you're mentally present for it. It takes at least 20 minutes for your physiological responses to go back to normal, so make sure that you wait at least that long. The second is to practice speaking to your partner in a non-defensive way. You've already seen how defensiveness can up the ante in an argument, causing both parties to deny responsibility and blame each other. Non-defensiveness does the opposite. It de-escalates conflicts by making sure both people feel seen and heard. When you do get into a conflict with your partner, practice listening non-defensively. Watch your body language. Are you standing with your arms crossed or rolling your eyes? That will give your partner the clear message that you're not really listening. Relax your body, and remember that even if your partner is angry, you don't have to be afraid. It's not a personal attack, it's a sign that they care deeply about what they're telling you. Make sure they know you're listening by making empathetic statements like, "I understand," or just by nodding and making eye contact. When it's your turn to speak, weigh up your statements, and think about what effect your words will have. If you have an issue you want to raise, make your complaint as specific as possible. Try using X, Y, Z statements, as in, when you do X in situation Y, I feel Z. Being so specific will help your partner understand exactly what's bothering you. It will also make them much less defensive than if you made a vague, general criticism. For example, think about how it would feel to hear your partner say, "When you forgot to take out the trash last night I was annoyed," versus, "You're always so irresponsible and forgetful. You never help out around here." The first statement is about behavior. The second is a judgment on your partner's personality and general behavior. You can imagine which statement would evoke more defensiveness and anger. The third key strategy for improving your communication builds on non-defensive speaking and listening and adds in a vital ingredient, validation. When you validate your partner, you mirror back what they're saying, to show you're actively listening. The most powerful way to validate someone is to try to genuinely empathize with them. Put yourself in their shoes, and try to imagine what they're thinking and feeling. Then let them know that you understand. Validating what your partner says doesn't mean you agree with them. It simply shows that you take them seriously, and care about their point of view. This attitude will, in turn, make them much more likely to listen to you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and stay tuned for more book discussions.